The wind rolled across the Chicago streets in a restless sweep of late autumn chill when Lena arrived at her parents' home with her 2 children. The sky had the heavy look of early evening, drained of color, muted like a warning that no one wished to interpret. Her children, Milo and Kira, stepped onto the porch with backpacks still unzipped and jackets half buttoned. They were preteens then, full of chatter and questions, and the natural expectation that their mother would return soon. Their grandparents, Raymond and Elsie, welcomed them warmly. Raymond had silver hair that stood as if it had been shocked by electricity, yet his eyes always held a playful brightness that made the children laugh. Elsie was soft-spoken, the type of woman whose quiet presence filled a room with calm. She immediately reached for Kira's hand with gentle reassurance. Lena said she needed to run a quick errand. She said it lightly, the way a person tries to keep their voice from betraying deeper truth. Milo asked if she would be back before dinner. Lena smiled and said yes, she would. She promised. She waved once, then twice, and then she disappeared down the steps and into her car. They never saw her return. Not that night, not that week, not that year. Life folded itself into something new, almost without asking permission. Raymond and Elsie became guardians, guides, and the steady foundation the children learned to trust. They built routines. Breakfast with warm oatmeal and honey. Evenings with homework spread across the dining table, followed by Raymond's patient lessons on circuits, programming languages, and the tools he used to protect the house after the old break-in that had haunted him for years. He taught Milo how to check the security logs. He taught Kira how to operate the cameras discreetly. He spoke very little about why he had installed the system so thoroughly, and the children sensed it was a subject better left untouched. 12 years passed. Milo and Kira grew into striking young adults, admired in their schools, not only for their intellect but for their kindness. They won scholarships to the universities of their choosing. Their grandparents glowed with pride during every award ceremony. Then the illness struck Raymond. It moved quickly and without much mercy. Elsie rarely left his side, and the children took on the role of caretakers, with a quiet maturity that surprised even themselves. When Raymond finally passed, the house seemed to lose its warmth. Elsie retreated into her room, her grief too vast to express aloud. On the day of the funeral, while gray clouds wrestled above the mourning crowd, a familiar figure stepped hesitantly through the chapel doors. Lena stood there, older, thinner, her expression heavy with something unreadable. She carried a bouquet that seemed too bright for such a somber scene. Milo and Kira saw her. Their emotions twisted painfully. Questions long buried began to rise, sharp and demanding. Elsie froze when she noticed Lena, her face flickering between shock and resentment. Lena whispered that she wished to make amends. She wished to repair what had been broken. She wished to return. Lena waited at the edge of the chapel as if she feared that taking one step too quickly might shatter the fragile moment. Milo and Kira approached her slowly, their faces guarded. They had spent 12 years forming themselves without her, 12 years watching their grandparents give them everything she had withdrawn. Yet they had also been taught about grace and forgiveness, lessons Raymond had woven into their lives with deliberate care. Elsie stayed back, uncertain, her hands clasped to stop them from trembling. She studied her daughter with a mixture of longing and suspicion, as if the sight of Lena reopened a wound she had spent years forcing closed. Lena apologized. She apologized for the silence, the absence, the lost birthdays, and the countless promises that had dissolved without explanation. She spoke with shaking breath, saying she had been young, overwhelmed, and foolish. She said she wished to start again if they would allow it. Milo and Kira exchanged glances. Their hearts were not quick to trust, but they wanted answers, and they wanted truth. They wished to believe that the woman who had left them behind might have changed. After the funeral, they invited Lena to the house. Elsie hesitated, but Milo assured her that they would navigate this carefully. They returned to a home that felt hollow without Raymond's steady presence. Lena walked through each room, as if reacquainting herself with a past she had abandoned. She complimented the children on their achievements. She praised Elsie for raising them so well. She tried to weave warmth into her words, as though hoping to stitch herself back into the fabric of their family. In the days that followed, Lena did everything she could to appear devoted. She cooked meals. She brought flowers to place beside Raymond's framed photograph. She listened to the children speak about their memories of him. She even helped Elsie drink her tea during evenings when grief pulled her too deeply inward. Milo watched her carefully. Kira studied her with a quiet intuition she did not voice. Something about Lena's sudden generosity felt heavy with intention, though neither child could name the source of their unease. They had grown up in a house protected by cameras, passwords, backup systems, and quiet suspicion. Raymond had not installed these measures without reason. Then, one afternoon, Lena asked a question that shifted the air in the room. She wanted to know about Raymond's finances. She asked if he had saved anything significant. She wondered if Elsie was managing everything properly considering her emotional state. Milo and Kira answered cautiously. They pretended to have no knowledge of bank accounts or assets. They described Elsie as tired and fragile, which was true enough, but they withheld the sharper truths they sensed Lena was trying to uncover. Lena nodded and smiled, but her eyes remained calculating, as if piecing together a puzzle only she understood. Days later, Elsie left the house with a friend who insisted she take a break from her grief. The moment the front door closed, Milo and Kira stepped outside to walk along the quiet street and breathe in the cold Chicago air. They planned to meet Elsie at the lawyer's office later, as he had requested their presence for an important matter. But while they walked, Milo's phone vibrated with a sharp alert. It was a motion notification from the security system. He opened the camera feed, and the world around him narrowed. There, inside their home, Lena moved quietly through the hallway. She slipped into Elsie's room with deliberate care. Then she crossed into Raymond's old office. She tugged at locked drawers. She began typing hurriedly on his computer. Milo felt the air leave his lungs. Kira leaned in, her eyes widening in disbelief and dread. Everything they had suspected now unfurled into truth before them. The woman who wished to reconcile had come with purpose. And it was not love. The weight of the discovery pressed heavily upon Milo and Kira as they stood on the sidewalk, the cold Chicago air no longer refreshing but suffocating. Milo replayed the live feed again and again, hoping he had misinterpreted what he saw. But the evidence was clear. Lena searched the rooms with quick, purposeful movements, her eyes darting with a sense of urgency that revealed her true intentions. Kira clenched her fists. She felt anger rise up, sharp and burning, but beneath it lay something even more painful. She realized that a small part of her had still wished her mother had come back for love. It hurt to understand now that she had come back for something else entirely. They hurried toward the lawyer's office with a silent understanding that the world had shifted beneath them. When they entered the building, they found Elsie already seated in the waiting room, her face pale but composed. She gave them a gentle nod. Her grief lingered, but today something steadier glimmered within her expression, as if she was prepared for whatever truth would be revealed. The lawyer, Mr. Cadwell, invited them into a conference room. He was an older man with stern but sympathetic eyes. He knew the family well. Raymond had trusted him for decades. The room smelled faintly of paper and ink, a scent that always reminded Milo of his grandfather's meticulous work habits. Before discussing the will, Mr. Cadwell asked a simple question. He wanted to know if they wished to wait for Lena, who had not arrived. Elsie answered before anyone else could speak. Her voice was quiet but firm. She said they would proceed. A thin silence stretched across the room. Mr. Cadwell unfolded a stack of documents. He began to read the will, line by line, each word carrying the weight of Raymond's final decisions. He spoke of Elsie's lifelong devotion and the trust fund he had arranged for her to ensure she would never know financial struggle. He spoke of Milo and Kira's achievements and how proud Raymond had been of their discipline and their compassion. Each grandchild was to receive a trust as well, enough to support their education, their dreams, and the comfortable life their grandfather had wanted for them. Milo felt pressure build in his chest. Kira steadied her breath. Elsie quietly wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. Then Mr. Cadwell reached a section that made him pause. His voice grew more deliberate. Raymond had written a codicil. In it, he expressed concern, not anger, but a solemn warning. He advised Milo and Kira to be cautious of people who might seek to benefit from his legacy. He named no one directly, but the implication rested heavily in the air. He instructed them not to provide financial support to individuals who had abandoned their responsibilities in the past. His words were measured, but unmistakable. There was nothing left for Lena, not a single asset, not a token inheritance. Elsie closed her eyes, absorbing the bittersweet confirmation of what she had suspected. Milo and Kira exchanged a look that reflected equal parts sorrow and clarity. The truth had been waiting for them long before the camera alert arrived. Raymond had known. He had known and chosen to protect them silently. As the reading concluded, footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway outside. Someone was approaching the door. Milo felt a chill crawl up his spine. He knew exactly who had finally decided to arrive. The door creaked open, and Lena stepped into the room with hurried breath and a faint smell of alcohol clinging to her clothes. She blinked in confusion at the sight of everyone seated around the polished conference table. Her gaze darted from Milo to Kira, then to Elsie, and finally to Mr. Cadwell, whose expression remained firmly professional. She muttered an apology for being late, claiming she had overslept. Elsie did not respond. Her eyes held a distance that Lena seemed not to notice, or perhaps chose to ignore. The lawyer calmly stated that the reading had already taken place. Lena's posture stiffened. She asked what she had missed. No one answered immediately. The silence stretched, heavy and revealing. Milo watched her carefully. Kira felt her heart pound with a slow, aching rhythm. They knew what Lena had been doing, while the rest of them gathered to honor Raymond's final wishes. Mr. Cadwell cleared his throat and informed Lena that the contents of the will were complete and binding. He explained the trust left for Elsie and the grandchildren. He explained that there was no inheritance designated for her. He spoke with the steady tone of someone who had no intention of softening truth. Lena's face paled. She forced out a brittle laugh, asking if perhaps there had been a mistake. She insisted that she was Raymond's daughter and that there must be something left for her. Anything. Even a small portion. Her voice cracked as it rose. Elsie lifted her gaze, her eyes no longer clouded by grief, but sharpened by understanding. She reminded Lena, softly but firmly, that Raymond had always acted with intention. If he had wanted to leave her something, he would have done so. Lena's composure splintered. She turned toward Milo and Kira, her expression twisting between desperation and anger. She asked if they had encouraged this decision, if they had turned their grandfather against her. Kira flinched at the accusation. Milo held steady, though a quiet heat simmered beneath his calm exterior. Then he spoke. He told Lena that Raymond had trusted them with the truth. He told her they had seen her searching the house earlier, seen her entering rooms she had no reason to enter, seen her breaking into a computer that did not belong to her. He told her about the camera alert. Lena staggered back a step, her shock visible. She tried to deny it. She insisted she was only looking for mementos or old family photos. Her words wavered, unsupported by sincerity. Mr. Cadwell folded his hands and revealed one final detail from the codicil. Raymond had stated that Milo and Kira were not to offer financial support to their mother under any circumstance. He had written that financial dependence could be used as a weapon, and he wished to spare his grandchildren from manipulation. Lena's expression darkened. The truth settled over her like a storm cloud, leaving nowhere for her excuses to hide. Her intentions had been exposed, stripped bare by the camera footage and by Raymond's foresight. Elsie rose slowly from her seat. She looked at her daughter, not with anger, but with a grief too deep for words. She spoke only a single sentence, her voice steady. She said that love could be offered again, but trust would take a lifetime to rebuild. Lena's eyes shimmered with sudden tears, though none fell. She pressed her lips together, unable to speak. The room felt suspended in fragile stillness. Lena sank into the nearest chair, drained of the confidence she had once tried to display. The truth surrounded her on all sides. She could not outrun it, nor could she twist it into something convenient. Milo and Kira remained quiet, their eyes steady on her. They were waiting, hoping perhaps for honesty at last, the one thing she had never offered freely. Mr. Cadwell excused himself to retrieve final documents, leaving the family alone. The room felt colder without his structured presence, as though the walls themselves exhaled the weight of the moment. Elsie sat down with slow, careful movements. She placed her hands on the table, fingers trembling slightly from grief, exhaustion, and the emotional strain of facing her daughter. Her gaze rested on Lena with a mixture of sorrow and restrained strength. After a long moment, she spoke. She said that when Lena had disappeared all those years ago, she had searched the city for her. She had stayed awake through nights filled with worry, imagining every terrible outcome. She had prayed for her daughter's safety, even as her heart broke for Milo and Kira, who asked every morning if their mother would return. She said that the absence had not only wounded the children, it had carved a deep scar in her own life. Lena lowered her eyes. Her voice cracked as she whispered that she had been afraid back then. She had been overwhelmed by responsibility. She had felt trapped. She said she had made mistakes and had hoped, somehow, that time would erase them. Milo answered softly but firmly. He said that time could not erase what someone refused to face. He said that forgiveness required truth, and truth required courage. Lena looked at him then, her expression flickering with an emotion he had never seen in her before. Shame. Kira asked the question that had been haunting her since childhood. She asked why their mother had never come back, not even once. The room stilled. Even the air seemed to listen. Lena hesitated. For the first time, her voice held no rehearsed emotion. She admitted that she had returned once, years ago, intending to take something valuable after falling into debt. She admitted that she had stolen family items, believing no one would ever know. She admitted that Raymond had almost caught her leaving. She said she had seen him standing by the window, but he had not followed her. His silence had frightened her more than anger would have. Elsie closed her eyes, pain flickering across her features. Milo and Kira exchanged a look that held sadness rather than surprise. They finally understood the truth behind the old break-in and why their grandfather had strengthened the security system with such dedication. Before Lena could speak again, Mr. Cadwell returned and asked each of them to sign a document acknowledging the reading of the will. They complied quietly. When it was complete, he offered his condolences and stepped away, leaving them to finish what emotion remained between them. Lena stood slowly. She wiped her eyes but did not attempt to compose herself into confidence or manipulation. She simply looked at her children and at her mother, as though searching for a place to belong in a family she had abandoned. She asked if they still wished to allow her in their lives. The question hung in the air. It was not simple. It was not something they could answer with immediate grace. Milo stepped closer and said that forgiveness was not the same as blind trust. He said they believed in second chances, but not at the expense of their safety or their grandfather's wishes. Kira added that they might be willing to know her again, slowly, carefully, but she must respect the boundaries that were now necessary. Elsie nodded in agreement. Her voice softened as she said that healing was a long road, and no one could skip the hardest steps. Lena accepted this with a quiet nod. She did not argue. She did not protest. She seemed to understand that this was the only path left to her, and it would be a narrow one. The family walked out of the lawyer's office together, though with distance between them. Chicago's afternoon light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Milo glanced at the sky and wondered if Raymond would be proud of how they had handled the day. Kira felt a gentle ache, missing her grandfather's humor and guidance, but she also felt the strength he had instilled in them. Outside, the wind carried a soft chill. Elsie linked her arm with Kira's. Milo walked beside them. Lena followed a few steps behind, unsure but present. It was not a perfect reunion. It was not a simple ending. It was a beginning built on raw truth, guarded hope, and the wisdom Raymond had left behind. And as they moved forward, each of them understood one thing with clarity. Love could be offered, forgiveness could be taught. Trust, however, would have to be earned.